Alright, so over the last week or so, the MMA world has pretty much been losing their collective minds talking about the brief Alex Pereira situation.
Talking about whores, people! They're everywhere!
But now that this somewhat equal parts amusing and troubling saga is firmly in the rearview for now, and the UFC has served up its latest pile of steaming shit, I guess it's time to get back to reality somewhat. Now, the wisest among the community have seen the writing on the wall for quite a while now, and have long since moved on to more exciting endeavors on a Saturday night. However, for the rest of us that remain, there has been a growing feeling that the UFC is kind of entering the dark ages somewhat. So with that in mind, I reached out to everyone I could in the community to ask a very simple question. If you were president of the UFC, what is the first thing that you would change to make things a bit less shit, I guess?
Alright, what's going on, guys? So if you put me in the boss's chair of the UFC for one day, I would most definitely bring back custom shorts for any and all UFC fighters in the promotion. I think that this is like a twofold kind of solution, kind of thing that I would do, because one, it would make things a little bit more interesting to watch in the UFC fights. I personally hate the fucking Venom shorts. I've always hated the Reebok shorts. So bringing back custom shorts would just help me as a fan enjoy watching the fights a little bit more again. And also, the fighters would actually get paid more because they get paid jack shit on the Reebok/Venom deals. So for them to be able to make another stream of income through use of custom shorts and having their own sponsors on their shorts, I think it's a win-win situation.
What's going on, guys? This is Wyatt from Fight Society checking in with bad MMA math. One thing that I would change about the UFC that I think could improve it and give us some more storylines and big fights, adding more divisions to the sport. I've actually made videos about this before, but I think that the UFC should have a weight class like basically every 10 pounds from 25 up to 205, and then do a 230, 225 cruiserweight, and then make heavyweight like 275, 280, so that the heavyweights don't have to like cut down if they're a 300-pound guy or somebody like Francis or Derek Lewis. But yeah, I think that they should make the weight classes 125, 135, 145, 155, 165, 175, 185, 195, 205, and then you do like a 225 or 230, and then you push heavyweight up a little bit. And I think that more weight classes would also deter so much weight cutting, which, as we obviously know, is not great for the fighters. So there's my take on one thing I would change about the UFC, more weight classes.
Look, man, if I had to change one thing about the UFC, right, it would be to remove the fucking Burger King ads. Whopper, Whopper, that shit gives me PTSD just seeing it right now, bro. Like, I don't know why they have so many ads, right? Specifically, the Burger King one is the most annoying one. That's why I remember it. But they don't need that much ads. Like, the UFC makes a lot of money. There's no excuse for them to be playing an ad during a fighter's walkout when it's like Tony's last fight and they just played an ad over his walkout. Why would you do that? There's already a billion other ads integrated in the UFC on the canvas, on the broadcast when John Anik fucking reads them out. And when they get like a freaky fast finish. So if I were to change one thing, it would be to tone down the frequency of ads.
What I think would be a great addition to the UFC in terms of promotion for them, and also to really get the fan base, the MMA community, to kind of rally behind every single event, would be live voting. Now, here's what I mean. So if you watch American Idol, you watch The Voice, you watch Survivor, some of those reality-like shows, they do live voting. So you vote for your favorite singer, you vote for your favorite, contestant. However, that would work. Again, they would have to kind of figure out all the details there. But what if the UFC, for some of these fight nights, for these pay-per-views, Dana and team kind of were like, look, these are who we think are the two best fights that happened tonight. Let's ask the fans. Let's do a poll on Instagram, on X, wherever it is, and let's ask the fans what they think. So it would be maybe an hour right after the main event of open voting to where the fans can make their voice heard on what they think is the best fight of the night. Maybe do an underdog performance of the evening, asking the fan base, who do you think put on tonight? Who do you think? Because you got to remember, some of these guys on the prelims that, they're not making a ton of money, and a $50,000 bonus for them can be absolutely life-changing. So I think something like that, if the UFC look to implement that, one, really good promotion for them. Two, gets the fan base really interacting and engaged with the events. I think that would be something really fun that the community would really enjoy.
If I was president of the UFC, the first thing I would do is funnel a shit ton of money to myself, and I'd get rid of all the women's divisions. More realistically though, I'd heavily invest in areas like India, Indonesia, and Africa where there's tons and tons of untapped stars, and I'd also increase fighter pay universally. This way, higher level athletes will be attracted to the sport. I'd also allow for a more open rule set with knees to grounded opponents, and possibly just getting rid of the fight uniforms as a whole to further add and build characters in mixed martial arts, because marketability at the end of the day is all the UFC needs to succeed.
I think the most glaring thing that really should be changed, we need this, it would add so much hype to the UFC, is if they added a 165-pound division, and if they changed welterweight from 170 to 175 pounds. The immediate effects I think this will have are massive. For starters, the hype for Conor McGregor's return, fighting Michael Chandler, will be at an all-time high if there's a belt on the line. If there's really a chance for Conor to add another belt to his legacy, whether you believe it's deserved or not, he did earn 2 in the past. He is the biggest star on the planet. I wouldn't mind seeing him fight for a vacant 165-pound division title. And on top of that, it would make up for how poorly Mike Chandler was done these last 2.5 years. I also think changing welterweight to 175 can have crazy ripple effects throughout the entire sport, or at least throughout the entire UFC. I think it's really just that cut and dry. Let's add 165, let's add 5 pounds to welterweight. Everything will be so much more balanced that way, trust me. And we'll see so many more fighters come out of the woodworks and emerge as prospects because now they're at their healthy weight class.
What's up, guys? It's your fucking boy, Paradox the fucking Chad. So basically, yeah, I was supposed to think of something that would make the UFC better or some bullshit. And I think this is quite simple, it took me approximately 10 seconds to think of this fucking solution, but it would fix everything, Basically, just stop having shit matchmaking. And, imagine a world where, Tom Aspinall just fought John Jones, and, JDM just fought Shavkat, and, everything was just blissful, bro. That would be a utopia, that's what that would be. So, yeah, fuck off the shitty matchmakers, whoever you are, fucking been stuck in the same job for 10 years and you still can't figure out how to fucking pick good fights. And yeah, fucking kill John Jones at all costs.
What sticks out to me immediately is I feel like there should be a 1-year moratorium on somebody who has either a championship belt or has a spot in the rankings. If you don't have a fight scheduled or haven't fought within a year, then I think you should lose your spot. If you are a champion and you haven't been scheduled for a fight within a year, you cannot sit on that belt. You have to either be booked for a fight or you're going to lose that belt. You're going to be stripped. I think that there'll be more fighters that are either pushed to fight or be stripped, one of the two. People cannot squat on their spots. So Michael Chandler, you shouldn't be ranked at all.
Here it is, and I believe it'll fix 2 birds with 1 stone. I would introduce legacy contracts into the UFC, where if you fight out over a 5-year period in the UFC, 17 fights, which averages you about 3 fights per year, you get an extra $10 to $15 million at the end of that contract, not during it. That way it keeps the fighters poor and hungry while they're in the organization, whereas if they finish their contract, then they get a massive payout. And if you spend the majority of that contract in the top 15, that bumps up even more to say 15 to 20 million. And if you spend a period of that 5-year contract as a UFC champion, that bumps up even more to say 25 to $30 million. That way it incentivizes UFC fighters rocking up every single year and staying active.
So I would make all finishes guaranteed bonuses, and I would make it a tiered system. So first round finishes, 30K bonus. Second round finish, 15K bonus. Third round and above finishes, 7.5K bonus. Now, missing weight, obviously, you can't get the bonus. And I like this because fighters on the early prelims and the prelims have a chance to make more money in a bonus than they do even in the fight. And the product would improve instantly, in my opinion, and we the fans would benefit from more exciting fights.
Oh, I'm too close, sorry. Hello, welcome everybody. That was a funny thing we just did. What I would change in the UFC isn't a very significant changing, but what I would do whenever a fighter, say a coach, you're telling the fighter, what the fuck, whenever a fighter's in ground and pound, they've got top control, I would encourage the fighter in top control to scream as loud as possible into their opponent's ear, so that their eardrum would burst. Then when they stand back up, their equilibrium is completely gone. Nobody ever utilizes that. You just can't make this up.
Cut the entire roster by a quarter, maybe even by a half, and use what invested money the UFC already does have to help fighters who remain have good sponsorships and ways to promote themselves, and give themselves a little bit of security as fighters as a reward for the hard work they do as part of the UFC for good performances. Not only do I think you would make the quality of the pay-per-views as well as the fight nights better overall. We don't have to have burnout for the fans every single week for a crap show at the Apex. I feel like we'd be able to get rid of a lot more guys coming off of, mediocre wins. I'd cut them off of losses. So bad performances from Jailton Almeida or bad performances from Marab. As soon as one of those guys lose, cut them, because they don't represent what the UFC is looking for in terms of fighters. So bad talent or ones that hurt the sport overall, we get rid of right away. And then those who actually want to contribute to the sport and push it forward, we actually reward through the kind of reward program that the UFC used to have before it went corporate.
All right, so while I'm here, I might as well throw my 2 cents in real quick. Fixing issues with judging and cross-promoting with other organizations, and maybe open scoring were things that I thought about initially. But when I thought it through, I couldn't help but feeling that there were other issues that were likely to come about. For instance, humans are always going to be dumb as fuck, and the roster on the UFC is already somewhat bloated enough as it is. So I've gone with something that has really been the bane of the sport for what feels like forever now, and for me is a pretty easy fix. And that's the amount of times we have had fighters pull out of fights, usually at the last minute, for often a range of completely asinine reasons. The way that I would fix this is by paying for backups for every single main event fight on every single weekly card. I feel like this would solve 2 issues in one move. It would make it more likely that cards don't fall to complete shit when these pullouts inevitably happen, and we know that they will. And it would also give fighters that are willing to nut up and step in on short notice an opportunity to get another paycheck. 2 problems with fighter pay and damaged cards dealt with one decisive move. You're fucking welcome. Alright, so what suggestion did you think was the best idea? What idea did you think was the dumbest? More importantly, what would you do if you were in this position? Before I sign off, I'd like to thank all the creators that took part. I've linked them chronologically in the description, so check those guys out. There are some really great creators that took part here. Like and subscribe and all that good shit. Have a great one, and I'll see you soon for the next one.